Hi, Eagles. Welcome back. This is week 7, lesson 2. Today we're learning about balancing simple budgets. We just finished with part 1, where you learned how to check to see if a budget is balanced by adding up all of the income and adding up all the expenses and seeing if the income is either more than or equal to your expenses. That way we know if that budget is balanced. Now we're going to apply that knowledge in part 2 on some questions that you might see on stars. So these are kind of star-like questions. They're similar. So we're just going to look at a couple of questions and just be able to explore how we can apply that new budgeting knowledge that we just learned in part 1. So I'm going to first give you like the next 30 seconds. You can look over what I wrote down for my notes from part 1, just to make sure you can compare what you wrote and what I have. You can pause and then press play when you're ready to move on. All right. So we're in part 2. We're looking at the first problem, problem A. In part 2, I'm going to kind of zoom in here. It says the table below shows Madeline's monthly budget. Based on the table, what is the most amount of money? Oh, that's supposed to be Madeline, not Anna. Can spend on groceries each month. So we've got her budget here. On the left side, we have income. On the right side, we have our expenses. Now, she's got rent, insurance, gas, utilities, savings, and groceries in her expenses. But if you notice, the groceries is left blank. We want to know the max amount of groceries that she can buy based on her budget. In order to find out the max amount of groceries she can buy, first we need to figure out how much money is left over in her budget. So we're going to go ahead and add up her income and then add up the expenses that we know about. So let's first start, and I'm going to get some scratch paper here, and we're going to add up her paychecks. That's her income over here off to the side. So I've got 1,350 plus 1,350. And once again, we're going to add that up off to the side. You can go ahead and get started if you haven't already. So this is our income. All right, so you should be finished with this part by now. We're regrouping the 10 tens to make 100, and now we've got 7. So 2,700. I'm going to go ahead and write that here on our guided notes that this is how much her income is. So that's the max amount of money that she has. She doesn't have any more. Like, that's it based on those 2 paychecks for this budgeting cycle. Now let's check out how much she spent on expenses. And once again, I'm going to grab my scratch paper so that I can go ahead and add that up. So I've got my expenses here, and I'm going to add those up. So I'm going to add them up 2 at a time because there's a lot of numbers here, and I don't want to get them confused by trying to add all of her expenses together. So I'm going to just add up her rent and her insurance first. So rent, insurance, and I'm going to add those up. So 875. You can follow along on your paper as well. And then 120 is her insurance. So we're adding those up, making sure I'm aligning up my decimal. 99. So we get 995, but that's just for the rent and the insurance. Now let's add on the gas. So I am going to rewrite this 995 plus now my 180 for the gas. 5, that's going to give us 16, 17, and that's going to be 11. So now we have 1,175 once I add my comma. Now we're ready to add on the utilities because remember, this was just the gas. Now we're ready to add on those utilities. So I'm taking 1,175. I'm going to add on 260. So there's a lot of addition going on here, but we're just literally adding up all of the expenses. So that's going to leave us with 4. So now we're at 1,435. Oops, sorry. Scroll down a little bit more. But now we're at savings. She put money into her savings account. We need to also include that as an expense because that is being taken out of her paycheck. So we're going to add that on. So 1,435 plus 800. So once we've added that up, we get a grand total of $2,235. So that's how much in expenses that she's already spent. So all of this is $2,235. So she has, let's go back here. She has $2,700 in income. Her rent, insurance, gas, utilities, and savings brings its expenses to $2,235. But she still has to buy groceries. We want to know the max amount of groceries that she can buy. So we want to know how much she has to spend if she goes to the grocery store right now. So what we're going to do is we're going to take her income and we're going to subtract her expenses. So once again, with my scratch paper here, I'm going to take 2,700 and we're going to subtract the total expenses, 2,235. So we're subtracting that. I can't subtract across zeros, so of course we're going to go ahead and unbundle this 700s. This will become 10, but still no ones. So we're going to cross that out, unbundle that 10 to make 10 ones. So now we have enough to subtract. And as we finish subtracting that out, we see that she can spend $465. So that's how much money she has left that she can spend on her groceries. That's the most. Now, of course, she can spend less than that, but the question is asking what is the max or the most amount that she can be able to spend? And $465 is the most that she can spend on groceries based on her budget in order for it to be balanced. All right, so let's look at the next problem. The next problem says the table below shows Tony's monthly budget. Based on the table, at least how much money should Tony earn each month to have a balanced budget? So in this problem, we've got all of the expenses. So this is everything that Tony has to pay for or save in this month. However, what income must he have in order to have a balanced budget? And remember, if we want a balanced budget, that means we want the income to be either equal to or more than. And in this case, we want this to balance out to be equal. So we want the same amount of expenses as we do income. So to figure out what that is, what do you think we need to do? You're right. We're going to figure out how much he's spending in expenses. So we're going to find the sum or the total of all of his expenses. Go ahead and pause the video, add up all of Tony's expenses, and then when you're ready, press play so we can continue. All right, so you should have added up all of Tony's expenses. So off to the side, you're adding 675, you're adding 265, you're adding 282, and you're adding 197, 435, 500. I am going to fast forward through this problem because I want to make sure that we don't waste any time. So you get a grand total for all of his expenses once you've added up everything is going to be $2,354. This is how much money he's going to need in order to cover all of his expenses. So that is how much income, that is the least amount of income that he has to make sure that he makes, because that's how much he'll need to cover these expenses. If he makes at least this much, then his budget will be balanced. All right, guys. Now it's your turn to use this knowledge of balancing budgets to answer more questions about budgeting. Talk to you later. Hope to see you in the live tutorial sessions.